Hello and welcome to Crime Watch Daily Updates. I'm Anna Garcia. How does one woman end up dead after allegedly drowning in a toilet bowl? Today, we're looking at the case of Tracy Cusick, a 32-year-old woman who lived in Ottawa, Illinois, with her firefighter and bar-owning husband and their children. The family seemed content on the outside, but Tracy reportedly dealt with her own inner demons as she battled substance abuse with methadone, a powerful painkiller. On January 17th of 2006, Tracy's husband, Kenneth, found her unresponsive in a bathroom with her head still inside the toilet, and he called 911. Paramedics transported her to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. Initially, the autopsy report said she died by drowning, and there was a small amount of methadone still in her system. The coroner listed her manner of death as undetermined, but that didn't satisfy some law enforcement officials. The Ottawa police chief dove into Tracy's case and, after looking through autopsy photos, found a small cut on her chin and her forehead. Years after her death, her body was exhumed, and a coroner's jury determined that she died by homicide because some of her injuries reportedly could not have been possible without some sort of force from another person. Tracy's husband, Kenneth, was arrested in February of 2017 on suspicion of first-degree murder. He went on trial in 2019, but a jury found him not guilty of murder. Following the acquittal, Kenneth sued the Ottawa police chief, the LaSalle County state attorney, and other officials in federal court because he alleged they framed him for Tracy's death. Kenneth's lawsuit argues his reputation was destroyed, and he endured years of pain and suffering as a result of the murder charge against him. He claimed the law enforcement officials kept going after him as a means of political gain. As of January of 2023, this case has not yet been tried. Let's look back at the case of a young mother whose death baffled the community.
Aggravated battery, criminal trespass, retail theft. These are the types of crimes Ottawa, Illinois police are used to dealing with. Typical offenses that get shut down fast and filed away.
We have problems like any other town does, but murder is very rare, and unsolved crimes are absolutely very, very rare.
But no, sadly, the city's low crime rate is not the focus of this investigation.
When you think about being a reporter and think about all the stories you've covered, sometimes there are the ones that stick to your ribs, that you can't shake and you just can't get over, that even when you're trying not to think about them, they charge up in you and they're there.
Yes.
They just don't go away.
This may be one of the top ones because it still is a mystery, and it's just shocking.
In fact, as our Andrea Isom was about to find out, many of the people we spoke to believe that what happened to Tracy Cusick may just be one of the most shocking cases in the history of crime.
The most unusual thing about it is that it's a case where a person was found deceased. The cause of death was drowning, and they had drowned in a toilet.
She was only 32, and from all outward appearances, the young mother seemed to be living a happy life.
What are you thinking?
Just memories. She was a caring sister. She was a good person.
Great mom.
Great mom. The love that she had was just so much that it overflowed. I mean, she loved everybody.
Including her husband, Kenny. He was the owner of a local bar and a member of the Ottawa Fire Department, a real hometown hero. But it seems things might not have been so picture perfect between Kenny and Tracy behind closed doors, claims Katrina.
In the beginning, it was very good.
But after they got married, things changed.
He became more verbally abusive towards her.
And according to at least some reports, one source of strife between the two was Tracy's rumored substance abuse.
Kenny had said that, well, she's a drug addict.
Yes.
You say what to that?
I say my sister, Tracy, she had taken methadone.
Only available from specialized pharmacies, methadone is a strong painkiller most often prescribed to help people get over heroin. But Katrina says her sister had a valid reason for the drug, and it had everything to do with Kenny.
They had had an argument at one time in the past, and he shoved her down the stairs. Well, she hurt her back and was seeing a chiropractor, which wasn't helping her. So she got a hold of methadone and she took it because she was in so much pain.
There is no evidence proving Kenny pushed Tracy, nor any to prove the rumors he may have been having an affair at the time. Whatever the truth, Katrina says her sister was ready to leave.
She had told me she was waiting on a new position for employment, and once that came through, that was it. She was out of there. She was gone.
But for reasons still being debated, Tracy Cusick never got out. Just hours before the discovery that would change so many lives, Katrina's phone began to ring. It was her sister.
She told me her heart hurt. And I'm like, what do you mean your heart hurts? I said, do you need to go to the hospital? I said, because I'll come and get you. And she's like, no, my heart hurts. He hurt my heart.
Apparently, Tracy and Kenny had been fighting, mostly about the usual.
She was drinking Bloody Marys. She said, well, I went upstairs and I laid next to him. And he told me, get away from me, you stink.
At that point, what was their marriage like?
They weren't together anymore.
Under the same roof?
Right, under the same roof, but he slept in the master bedroom. She slept downstairs.
And that's where Tracy's sister says she was when she made that final call, downstairs, not far from the bathroom. Several hours later, Katrina got another call, this time from Kenny's mom.
It was real early in the morning, and she said, you and your mom need to get to the hospital. She said, Tracy's in bad shape. I thought maybe she fell and hurt herself. Death was not even close on my mind, not even close.
Unfortunately, death is exactly what Kenny Cusick told police he found when he woke up that morning and walked into the downstairs bathroom.
He says that he found her on all fours and pulled her out of the bathroom into their hallway and tried to do CPR, but she was already gone.
Gone from life, and by the time police arrived at the house, gone from there too.
My understanding from documented police reports is that officers respond there. Tracy Cusick had already been removed from the residence, transported to a local hospital by EMS.
At the hospital, Tracy's family finally learns the truth, at least part of it.
I see Kenny standing there, calmly drinking a cup of coffee. And I said, where's Tracy? I'm thinking maybe she's in intensive care. And he said, she's gone. And I said, you're telling me my 32-year-old sister is dead?
An autopsy would later determine her cause of death as drowning. In addition, a small amount of methadone was reportedly found in Tracy's system. The narcotic in her bloodstream, the drinking the night before. Could a highly intoxicated Tracy have quite literally stumbled to her own bizarre demise?
I don't believe that anybody at the time on the scene thought that they were investigating anything than possibly accidental death in one shape or form.
But Tracy's sister says there was one person who thought otherwise, Tracy's own husband.
And he said, I think she committed suicide.
Yes, by drowning in the toilet. She loved her children so much that she would never, ever commit suicide with her children in her home. Never. I'll stake my life on that.
The coroner couldn't say either way, so even though they knew Tracy drowned,
There was never really a conclusion of the case. In our county, the coroner has to issue a death certificate and has to have a manner of death, and that hadn't been completed.
The death certificate said what?
Undetermined.
because of that, the case was never technically closed, leaving the door open for sneaking suspicions to become something more. It was nearly 2 years after Tracy's death.
I was reassigned as Sergeant of Investigations. And this case always sort of bothered me in the sense that it was so unusual. And on reviewing the case file, seems like there was more to it. I don't buy that it was accidental. There's a lot of people that are under the influence of alcohol, perhaps, and they find themselves, for one reason or another, near a toilet bowl. And I've never heard of someone accidentally drowning in a toilet bowl from being intoxicated on a substance. It just doesn't happen.
And Captain Galandri became even more suspicious when he took a closer look at Tracy's autopsy photos. A small abrasion under her chin, tiny diamond-shaped cuts on her forehead.
And there were also some marks on her ankles that were unusual. They couldn't be readily explained. Our job is to explain what are these injuries. There was no obvious cause of these injuries to me.
As it turns out, the answers to at least some of those mysteries would come from over 300 miles away in northern Wisconsin. Oddly enough, it was there, roughly 10 years before, where another man claimed his wife had drowned herself in their toilet. And what investigators found in that case was about to raise a whole lot of eyebrows in Ottawa.
That case was found to be a homicide.
One can hardly imagine a less dignified way to die.
You can do all the research you like, and you're just not going to find cases where people drown in a toilet. It's just not a very common occurrence.
And yet, that's exactly how Tracy Cusick's husband says he found his wife, on all fours, face down in the family commode. There was no question she drowned, but coroners couldn't determine if it was accidental or something worse.
Because we hadn't, at that point, found any answers. We hadn't brought together any experts that were able to show us what happened.
But almost 2 years after Tracy was laid in the ground, new details were about to emerge. After giving the case a second look, newly assigned Sergeant of Investigations David Galandri decided more needed to be done.
Dave Galandri was such a godsend. I mean, because he came over and he said, "I'd like to talk about your sister's case." And my mom came home and I said, "Mom, they're gonna open Tracy's case up again." She cried.
But where to begin the investigation? Cops had no playbook for this one.
There are virtually no other investigations in the United States of people drowning accidentally or even committing suicide in toilets. It's unheard of.
Well, not exactly. Roughly 10 years before, in northern Wisconsin, a woman named Janelle Plude was also found drowned in her toilet. Her husband was ultimately convicted of murder. The story was later covered by a true crime show, which County Coroner Jody Bernard just happened to be watching around the time Galandri came calling.
It was almost like an aha moment for you.
It was an aha moment that we could actually find the people we needed to provide the evidence and the answers that we were looking for.
After that, Ottawa authorities began reaching out to the same experts who appeared on the show. Special consultants, a veteran pathologist, even a forensic plumbing engineer. Before long, Galandri and his team had everything they needed to work Tracy's case.
One of the things that we did was we purchased the same type of toilet that was documented in the photographs of the scene. And we filled that toilet. I've learned more than I care to know about toilets.
I'm sure.
And a toilet holds only so much water. So what we did is we recreated the scene of the bathroom where she was found deceased.
One of the mysteries the team hoped to solve was how a series of unusual bruises got on Tracy's head and neck. But before they even got that far,
we tried to duplicate first a situation where a person could, on their own, submerge their nose and mouth in the water of a toilet bowl. We were not able to duplicate a circumstance where that was possible at all.
Period.
Period.
So then, how did Tracy's face end up submerged? Investigators believe the bruises on her body explain that.
There are pictures that we can't share with our viewers,
Correct.
but you wanted me to get an understanding of when you talk about what the findings are, you wanted me to get a visual understanding of what you found and why this was impossible.
Correct.
Of particular concern was a small abrasion under Tracy's chin.
The injury to her chin was interesting. The forensic plumbing engineer had described that to when an individual is in that position and they cannot raise their head, their instinct is to back up. And what happens when you back up, your chin gets caught under the rim and there's an abrasion.
And that wasn't Tracy's only telltale mark.
The injuries to the throat area.
That injury is indicative from the rim of the toilet and pressure forcing her neck onto that rim.
And then there was also deep tissue bruising to the back of her neck.
Correct.
What does that say, Jody?
That says somebody was holding her head down at that point.
And Jody was even able to show our own Andrea Isom how easy that would have been.
That's not even enough pressure to leave bruising on your neck. And as you can tell, it was impossible for you to
lift. I couldn't do it.
Right.
And just if I was on all fours.
Even more difficult.
Impossible.
Absolutely impossible.
It was all painting a very grim picture, but there were still some marks that couldn't be explained. Those tiny diamond-shaped cuts on Tracy's forehead.
From that recreation, we actually got into a position where we felt like we needed to exhume the body and examine these injuries more closely.
It was a drastic move, but Tracy's family needed answers, and soon they'd have some.
There's something significant about your sister's wedding ring.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
She had the exact print of her wedding rings on her forehead.
To investigators, it was the final piece to the puzzle.
If someone was forcing her into the bowl of the toilet, if she put her hand in front of her face, then she would have been forced to have contact against that wedding ring. The pathologist matched that ring with the mark on her forehead.
Captain, it looks like you're saying to me that possibly Tracy was trying to defend herself.
I think that's the reason, yes.
A conclusion shared by the team.
She was definitely trying to get herself out of that situation.
But to really prove it, they would have to make their case to a special jury of coroners charged with making the final determination as to the manner of death.
When we held the coroner's inquest, I was the only witness that testified. So I testified generally to all of the compiled facts that we found in the investigation. I testified to a nutshell version of this investigation.
After that, the jury deliberated. But with a case so complicated, everyone knew it could be hours, even days before they got a ruling.
About 10, 12 minutes later, they walked back and called this case a homicide.
Finally, you got what you knew was
the truth.
The truth.
Yeah, homicide. She was murdered. I thought, oh, thank God. Finally, something's gonna happen.
There is now no doubt Tracy Cusick was murdered. But who would want this wife and mother dead? Well, there is one person who says there is also no doubt about that.
That person is Tracy's older sister, Katrina Gibbons, and she's pulling no punches.
Who do you think murdered your sister?
Kenneth Cusick.
Tracy's own husband.
You say that without 1 ounce of doubt.
No doubt.
Why?
No, because I know. In my heart, I know.
It's an allegation as serious as they come, and Kenny Cusick has never been an official suspect or criminally charged in Tracy's death. In fact, police won't say whether or not they agree with Katrina, who tells our Andrea Isom her suspicions began almost the moment she saw Tracy's husband at the hospital.
Tears?
Not one tear. Not even at her funeral. Not one tear.
And she says there was more suspicious behavior.
He did go home and he ripped out the toilet in the downstairs bathroom where he found her and threw it outside and sealed up the downstairs bathroom.
And this was how long after she was pronounced dead?
Hours.
Katrina's conclusion?
I believe he did it to cover up any kind of evidence. Any evidence whatsoever that they could find.
And the facts of the night Tracy died only seemed to bolster Katrina's suspicions.
There were only 3 other people in the home when this happened. 2 children And Tracy's husband, Kenny.
According to all of the investigative efforts, those are the only people that we know were present at this time.
Katrina also claims her sister thought Kenny might be having an affair and that she may have even threatened to leave him. It's unknown if her claims about an affair can be proven, but Tracy's family felt they had enough to bring a civil suit against Kenny.
And it had nothing to do with any monetary. He could have kept all his money. All I wanted him to do was confess. Tell us something, you know? Tell us the truth. Just the truth, that's all we want.
But when Kenny's young son refused to testify, the case was dropped. So what did Kenny have to say about it all?
I've spoken to him many times. Kenny has never offered any comment to the media since this case began. Not once. He just has no comment on the case.
But what did authorities think?
Has he been willing to talk with police about this case?
I'd rather not answer that question.
Do you have a suspect? Is there a person or persons of interest?
I really can't speak to any of that.
Why do you believe someone has not been arrested for this crime?
I don't have an answer to that question.
In fact, even though Captain Galandri can't officially tell us who police think killed Tracy, he says that as far as his investigation goes, there's little left to be done.
So, now what?
All of our files have been forwarded to the LaSalle County State's Attorney's Office. It's ultimately their decision upon their reviewing of the files whether there's a case to be made and whether someone could be charged with this crime.
You think there is a case to be made?
I certainly believe it deserves consideration, yes.
And he's not the only one.
To Brian Town, the state's attorney, what do you want to say to him, Katrina?
Do something. It's been long enough. We've even told Bryantown, roll the dice. We'll take whatever happens. Put it before a grand jury. We'll take whatever happens. Just do something. And he refuses.
Why? We decided to ask him ourselves.
I guess my first question to you, Mr. Town, is what a lot of people want the answer to, is why have you not prosecuted the case?
Well, and I wish there was a simple answer for that. And I wish that I could provide that for the family, and we're still working towards that end.
Police believe they have enough for you to proceed. To them, you say what?
I say that there's still work to be done, because we only get one shot at this. There's only one bite of the apple. And whether the detectives believe they have the right person, I believe that the suspect that they have is probably the perpetrator. But my problem is that I won't be sitting in the jury, you won't be sitting in the jury, the detectives won't be sitting in the jury.
And he says he believes the case is still lacking the kind of physical evidence most juries like to see.
Brian, Tracy's family says roll the dice. We're willing to take whatever happens. Just try.
When we're talking about the criminal court justice system, rolling the dice just isn't in my vernacular. We have to be able to proceed in a professional, responsible fashion, and if we aren't successful, we don't get another chance. If we do that, and this person is not found guilty, well, then that person can walk around and shout from the mountaintops how he or she killed Tracy, and there's nothing that we could do about it. I think that would be worse for the family.
But though State's Attorney Town says he's not ready to go to trial, he does say he's committed to bringing the killer to justice. Until then...
Is there a killer walking around in Ottawa, Illinois?
According to the coroner's jury, there is a murderer walking the streets.
Even though Kenny has never been named a suspect or charged, since Tracy's sister is now on record pointing the finger, we had to try to get his side of the story, tracking him down to the local firehouse where he works.
Hey guys, how are you? I'm Andrea Eisen with Crime Watch Daily. And I'm here looking for Mr. Kenny Cusick. Can any of you guys point us in the right direction? I'm sorry? No? Is he on shift today, or do you know when he will be back on?
That is Ken Cusick, but had just walked away. But hold on.
Kenny, can you please talk to us? We're looking to talk to you about Tracy. Did you have anything to do with it? Kenny, please come back and talk to us. Tell us your side of the story. What happened that night?
But Kenny refused to talk to us. And he has never made an official statement about the case at all. We will continue to reach out for comment.
There's no statute of limitations on homicide cases, so I always hope, and I'll hope till the end of my career and even beyond that, that we can still have a successful prosecution of this case.
A hope shared by Tracy's loved ones, and a fight for justice they vow to continue.
What do you want to say to Tracy?
I miss her a lot. And I really, really need her. And I'm never gonna give up.